November is Men's Health Awareness Month, or Movember. All over the world, men are sporting mustaches in support of men's health. Here at Boom Broadcasting, I work with a great group of men. I also work with a great group of men in the field of corrections and fire and rescue. If you're viewing this right now, I implore you to take better care of your physical health. Make sure you're going to the doctor regularly. Make sure that you have your yearly physicals. Make sure that you check your A1C, your blood pressure, your cholesterol. Make sure you're being checked for prostate and testicular cancers. Make sure that you maintain a healthy regimen of diet and exercise. Take care of your mental health as well too. Suicide rates are skyrocketing in the male population, and it needs to end. Remember, you are not a sissy if you go seek professional help from a physician, from a clinician, or from a trusted friend. Do not hold it in. Do not avoid it. If by chance you can't find a professional, reach out to me. Find me on X or TikTok at podcast_Smitty, all lower cases. Make sure you find me on the Instagram, podcast_SmittyQH, all lower cases. I'm not being paid by this. I'm not being paid for this. I'm not being sponsored by anyone. I'm not looking for compensation. I would much rather hear your story than read your obituary. Men, we must take charge of our physical and our mental health. Our communities, our families, the world needs us. Take charge of your life today. Enjoy the video. Welcome to Quick Hits. I'm your host, Shannon Smith, aka Podcast Smitty, and I am a fan of sport. I'm also a fan of broken records and the GOAT conversation. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Great Eight, Alexander the Great, Ovi, whatever you call him. But you will call him the King of Goals, Alexander Ovechkin, breaking the career regular season goals scored record that was previously held by the great one, Wayne Gretzky. He broke that record last Thursday. We're going to talk about how Alexander Ovechkin weighs in as if he's the greatest Washington Capital of all time. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Is he the greatest left winger of all time? Is he the greatest winger of all time? Also, too, putting him up against the great one, Wayne Gretzky, the man's record that he broke. Does that mean that Alexander Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer of all time? Does it mean that? We're going to discuss that here on this episode. And at the last segment here, I got a treat for you. We're going to talk about the GOAT conversation in 4 sports, 2 individual sports, 2 team sports. We've got some discussion on who is the GOAT. And I want to have that discussion with you right here on this episode of Quick Hits. So without further ado, let's start the show.
Now they holler he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's true.
Now let's talk about the Great Eight, Alexander Ovechkin, right now. Last Thursday, Alexander Ovechkin, and I'm going to take a line from my man Chris DeLuca from the Dugout Debrief. Alexander Ovechkin became the NHL's first and only member of the 900 Club. 2 minutes and 39 seconds into the second period, Alexander Ovechkin scored his 900th career regular season goal in a 6-1 rout of the St. Louis Blues. Now remember, last spring, he became the all-time leader in regular season goals, hitting his 895th goal in his 19th season in the NHL. Ovi is currently in his 20th season in his NHL career, and all of them have been with the Washington Capitals. Now let's go ahead and look at the legacy of Alexander Ovechkin. Now, of course, some of these are going to be Captain Obvious type questions, but I'm warming you up as we talk about the legacy of the Great Eight, because I've got some questions that I'm going to need for you to answer. Be a part of the conversation in the comments section. Make sure you do so. So, of course, first question has to be, is Alexander Ovechkin the greatest Washington Capital of all time? I would have to say yes. 16 plus franchise records, 20 years of experience. All of his time in the NHL has been with the Washington Capitals. He bought them a Stanley Cup as well too, numerous individual awards as a Washington Capital. I would have to say yes. Any Washington Capitals fans out there, get into the comments and confirm it, or say that he's not the not the greatest Washington Capital player. Maybe you have another. I'm pretty sure that I think we're all in agreement that Alexander Ovechkin is the greatest Washington Capital of all time. Now, the next question, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Sorry about that. Let me say that again. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? I would have to say absolutely. 14 official NHL records he holds. There's 13 unofficial records out there. A lot of those records, of course, with the individual awards, the scoring championships, getting a championship as well. I would say it's safe to say that the NHL, they would be foolish to not have Alexander Ovechkin as a number one, a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't see why they wouldn't do that. Safe to say, first ballot Hall of Famer Alexander Ovechkin is. Remember, Alexander Ovechkin earned the District of Columbia its first pro sports title since 1992 and its first pro sports MVP since 1983. Get into those comments and tell me who the last Washington, D.C. pro sports MVP was. I'm pretty sure that you know. I know you know the team that won a championship for the District of Columbia. I know the latest team that did it in 92. I know you know that one, but I want to know if you know who the last MVP that the District of Columbia had. I want to know if you know. So make sure you put that in the comments. One thing that needs to be said about Alexander Ovechkin's legacy is that he helped the NHL in a dark time. He and Sidney Crosby, their constant rivalry over their 20 years in the NHL, helped propel the NHL out of a lockout. The NHL was in its doldrums. They didn't have the rivalry that would help bring viewers to the NHL. Alexander Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby helped do that. I'll probably do a separate video on their rivalry. I have an idea on that. When I was putting this show together, I had the idea of what to do with Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin. Look out for that video. It should be coming up shortly. I'm going to be putting it together right after I finish this podcast here. But Alexander Ovechkin, dark time in the NHL. He and Sidney Crosby helped bring the NHL back to the forefront with the great scoring, with the great checking that Alexander Ovechkin had, along with the craftiness of Sid the Kid. Their rivalry was very consummate in the Eastern Conference of the NHL. Definitely going to be putting a video together for that. That needs to be added to Alexander Ovechkin's legacy if it has not been already. Now, Alexander Ovechkin is a left winger, been a left winger for 20 years in the NHL. Is he the greatest left winger of all time? I believe that he is. There have been some great left wingers out there in the NHL over the years. The Golden Jet, Bobby Hull, great left winger. Ted Lindsay, he was a left winger as well. This was before I was born. One of the best left wingers that I remember from my time is Luc Robitaille with the Los Angeles Kings. Also, too, Brendan Shanahan, a very formidable left winger as well. Dave Andreychuk, a great left winger from my time. Keith Tkachuk, one of my favorite hockey players, one of my favorite American hockey players as well, too. One of the top left wingers of my time as well, too. His son, Matthew Tkachuk and his son Brady playing in the NHL right now. Matthew Tkachuk winning multiple Stanley Cups as he has played in his career right now. Some of the greatest left wingers out there. But is Alexander Ovechkin the greatest left winger of all time? I would have to say yes. He has the most points by a left winger all time. Those goals by a left winger, of course. Alexander Ovechkin has those records. He also has the most goals in a season by a left winger. Alexander Ovechkin, king of the left wingers in the NHL. Now, of course, we have the great left wingers of the NHL that we just discussed. Alexander Ovechkin being the king of the left wingers. Is he the greatest winger in all of the NHL? I believe I will do a separate video on that one. Remember, the left and the right wingers, different wingers. Of course, they are the attackers, the main attackers going to the net, the center being the facilitator most of the time. But there have been some great centers out there. But Alexander Ovechkin, an offensive powerhouse, of course, a sniper disguised as a power forward, or vice versa. He could be. He has been a formidable power forward, a very hard checker in his career as a left winger in the NHL. But of course, the scoring prowess is what reigns supreme with the great eight, Alexander the Great. But is he the greatest winger of all time? Is he? Is he not? Is a certain man by the name of Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, is he the greatest winger of all time? That was before my time, of course. But is number 68, Jaromir Jagr, is he the greatest winger of all time? What about the Finnish Flash, Timo Solani? What about the Golden Jet, Bobby Hull, who we just talked about? What about his son, the Golden Brett Hull, one of my favorite players that I grew up watching? Who is the best? Let me know in these comments. Get into this conversation. I want to hear from you. Now, this is something that I've contemplated the whole time while I did this video, while I put this podcast together. Is Alexander Ovechkin the greatest goal scorer of all time? Take this under consideration. Being considered the greatest scorer in the NHL means that you are a great goal scorer as well as a great passer. You get very good assists. You have numbers when it comes to assists. That's the way it's looked at in the sport of hockey. Goals and assists account for if you are a great scorer or not. So don't think that I said that Alexander Ovechkin is the greatest scorer of all time. I did not say that. I want to know if he's the greatest goal scorer of all time, because we all know, anybody who has watched hockey in the inception of the NHL, if you're that old, or when I began watching hockey as a child, everyone knows the greatest scorer, goals and assists, the greatest scorer of all time is number 99, Wayne Gretzky. Of course, Wayne Gretzky, second all time in career goals in the regular season. He's also first all time with career assists, 1,963 assists in the regular season, and career points in the regular season with 2,857 points. Fun fact, if you take away Wayne Gretzky's 894 career regular season goals, he still has, his assists alone are more than the second all-time leader in points. And that's Jaromir Jagr, who has 1,921 points all time. Wayne Gretzky, 1,963 assists, still the most of all time. Now, Gretzky is the greatest scorer of all time, but has he taken the back seat to being the greatest goal scorer of all time because Alexander Ovechkin broke his record? And I'm glad you asked that, because I put a graphic together that shows this here. Of course, Wayne Gretzky putting together his playoff goals, his all-star goals. As you can see, Alexander Ovechkin, of course, when his goals, 1,000 goals in counting. Of course, he is still playing in the NHL as we speak. So there will be more opportunities for goals in the NHL for Alexander Ovechkin. Looking at his playoff goals as well, 277 playoff goals. Wayne Gretzky, 122, which is an NHL record. Also, too, you got the 894 goals that Wayne Gretzky has. Looking at the All-Star goals as well, too. 7 All-Star goals by Alexander Ovechkin. 13 by the great one, Wayne Gretzky, which is, surprise, surprise, an NHL record. Also looking at it, too, Alexander Ovechkin has more scoring titles than Wayne Gretzky. 9 scoring titles for Ovi, 5 for Wayne Gretzky. All in all, grand total of scoring here, Alexander Ovechkin, 984 goals, taking all of his goals he scored in the regular season, in the playoffs, in the All-Star game. He has 984 goals in counting. And Wayne Gretzky, taking his regular season, playoff, and All-Star goals, he has 1,029 goals. He is retired, of course. Wayne Gretzky, too old to play hockey. He's too old, yes. But he's not in the NHL anymore, no longer an active player, a retired player. We're not taking in account of his WHA goals either. This is just the NHL, of course. Wayne Gretzky, a part of the merger of the WHA and the NHL. So Wayne Gretzky has more goals still. If you add the WHA goals, which we did not do, Wayne Gretzky still has more goals. So in a nutshell, looking at this graphic here, has Wayne Gretzky taken a backseat to Alexander Ovechkin when it comes down to scoring? I don't think he has. Goal scoring, that is. I'm sorry. I don't think he has. Alexander Ovechkin, a formidable scorer in his career. Wayne Gretzky, a formidable scorer in his career as well, too. But I still believe, in my humble opinion, Wayne Gretzky is the greatest scorer and the greatest goal scorer of all time. Alexander Ovechkin is a second place to me. Now, of course, when it comes down to this, we look at these intangibles as well, which we'll be getting into in the next segment. Alexander Ovechkin, 6'3", 238 pounds, very physical player, very fast, powerful slap shot that he has, the quick wit, the one-timers, very hard shot that he has. Putting him in Gretzky's era, would he have the same numbers? His physical force, seeing him up against a Andy Moog, a Grant Fuhr, a Mike Vernon, would he have the same numbers? Would he have the numbers that Gretzky has? Would he be less? Also, too, Wayne Gretzky, there's always an argument with these eras that the goaltending is not as great as it was in the 90s and progressing into the modern era as of right now. Would Wayne Gretzky, with his size, he was 6 foot and 185 pounds, would he be able to have the goal scoring prowess that he had in the 80s as opposed to now, seeing a Dominik Hasek, seeing a Eddie Belfour in his prime, because there were great goalies coming up as the generation of hockey kept going. Would he be able to get the goal scoring, be able to score goals that he did against a Carey Price, against a Brian Boucher, a Marc-Andre Fleury, a Shesterkin, a Connor Hellebuyck? Would he be able to maintain the great goal scoring they had? Because remember, Wayne Gretzky had 200-point seasons, 92 goals scored in a season. Wayne Gretzky has that. That's a record. No one will probably touch that record ever. So Wayne Gretzky, having that goal scoring prowess that he had, would he be able to do that? Putting those guys into the others' eras, would they have the success that they're having right now? That's a question that us fans, that we get to talk about. But in my heart of hearts, Wayne Gretzky, greatest goal scorer, greatest scorer of all time. Alexander Ovechkin, a close second. but the greatness between these two are unparalleled. I love it. Get into those comments. Tell me what you think about what I just said. I want to hear what you have to say. We're going to go ahead and take a break and then get into the next segment where we're going to get into this fan of sport conversation that I'm going to have with you about the GOAT conversation. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's get this last segment going. But before we do, go ahead and subscribe to the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel and go through the plethora of podcasts that we have in the field of TV and movies, sports, and sports entertainment. We're 4 likes away from 600 yet again. Still at a stalemate, but tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that Boom Broadcasting gets it in. This week alone, we had to return to Mouthing Off with Mike. The watch along with Monday Night Raw, the nightcap was back. Good to see my man Mouthing Off with Mike talk some wrestling. Got to see John Cena win the Intercontinental Championship and complete what he was aiming to do, hold the major titles in the WWE. That was awesome. Make sure that you watch my man Mouthing Off with Mike. He may be back next week. We'll see. Stepped away for a little bit to get some business taken care of, do some content solo, but he's back just like we like to see him. Also, too, check my man Jason Colenso with 3 from Deep, talking the NBA. He put up an episode this past Monday. Sideline Savants also, too, on Wednesday, got to be on another episode with my man NY, talking some fantasy football and some one-hit wonders as well, too. Very fun show. Make sure that you watch. Check my man Chris DeLuca with the Dugout Debrief. He's talking baseball. They're in the off season right now, but my man is talking baseball 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, probably. But he gets on the video for about a good 30 minutes to talk some baseball with you. Make sure you check my man out. And you are here with Quick Hits as we talked about the greatness of Alexander Ovechkin. Talked about his 900 regular season goals, which is an NHL record, passing the great Wayne Gretzky. Is Alexander Ovechkin the greatest winger of all time? Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Is he the greatest Washington Capital of all time? Is he the greatest goal scorer of all time? We talked about that on this past segment. Make sure that you get into those comments. And now we'll get into my favorite part, which is the fan of sport talk. Now, putting this together, of course, I was thinking of, Alexander Ovechkin, Wayne Gretzky doing that incomparable feat of passing one of Wayne Gretzky's records. He's got many, many records, retired with 61 records when he retired after his 20 years in the NHL. Many of those records will never be touched. So, thinking about Alexander Ovechkin doing this, I had to get a part of it. I couldn't resist. The GOAT conversations that we have in sports. We've been having GOAT conversations for many years as fans. So I want to reopen that. I've got 4 GOAT conversations that we're going to discuss right here on this Fan of Sports segment. I've got 2 individual sports, and I have 2 team sports with the individual GOAT conversations that we are going to talk about. Let's go ahead and start with the very first one, a sport that I've gotten into over the past 2 years. That is Formula One racing. I've got Lewis Hamilton up against Michael Schumacher. Now, Lewis Hamilton, I like Lewis Hamilton. Like seeing him race. I'm a Max Verstappen guy by choice. But I also know, even though I did not grow up watching F1, I became a fan of F1 about 2 years ago. I do know the name of Michael Schumacher. I know that he is considered the GOAT. I went back and watched races of Michael Schumacher, watched races of Lewis Hamilton. Now let's look at the tail of the tape for these guys here. Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton. Of course, they have 7 world titles between each other, 7 world titles each. that they have. Michael Schumacher has the most wins in a season, 13 wins to Lewis Hamilton's 11. Has the most consecutive wins, 7 consecutive wins in a career as opposed to Lewis Hamilton's 5. And the fastest laps, 77 of them Michael Schumacher had in his career. Lewis Hamilton has had 53. Take under consideration, Lewis Hamilton is still an active racer. And Lewis Hamilton has more career wins, 105 in counting. And Michael Schumacher, who is retired, has 91 career wins. Lewis Hamilton has more poles, 97 poles in counting, as opposed to the 68 that Michael Schumacher has, and more podiums, 163 career podiums in counting for Lewis Hamilton, 155 for Michael Schumacher. Of course, in the GOAT conversation, you have some intangibles. In the GOAT conversation, of course, we take under consideration that the points, the way they scored points, the way the point system was in Formula One was different in Michael Schumacher's day, as opposed to what it is now for Lewis Hamilton. But taking Lewis Hamilton, taking his rankings and his accomplishments and putting it in the point system that Michael Schumacher had, Lewis Hamilton still has more points on the old scale than he does on the new scale. Same way with Michael Schumacher, his points would be different had he been in the newer era. He did come back from 2010 to 2012 to race again. I guess he couldn't, I guess he had the itch, he had to scratch and come on back to see what he had against these young guys. But one of the things about it here, looking at both of these careers, Lewis Hamilton is looked at as the more patient racer than Michael Schumacher. In his prime, Schumacher, he was hard to catch. Probably one of the most aggressive racers in all of Formula One. In his prime, nobody was touching Michael Schumacher. One of the fastest guys, a very aggressive racer. Lewis Hamilton, he's pinpointed times where he does his passes. He's able to use aggressive racing when it matters, but he was more defensive, more conservative racer, which ain't bad. It all depends on you as a fan, how you feel about it. So to me, I believe that Michael Schumacher is the GOAT, but I like Lewis Hamilton. I do. Hopefully Max Verstappen gets into the conversation, the GOAT conversation between Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton. Maybe he will, but I'm taking Michael Schumacher on this one. And then we go to golf. The PGA. We got Tiger Woods up against Jack Nicklaus. This one right here, I really, really like. I grew up watching Tiger Woods. I remember when he won the Masters, the youngest Masters winner, 21 years old. I watched it with my dad. It was really, really cool seeing that. The commercials, I'm Tiger Woods. Those commercials there. But the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus, very formidable, considered the GOAT by many. Now, both of these guys right here, both of these men, Tiger Woods and he both have had 3 career Grand Slams. Both of them have done that 3 times, winning the U.S., winning the PGA Tour, the British Open, and the Masters. They've done it 3 times in their careers. Now, Tiger has more PGA Tour wins, 82 to 73. And the Golden Bear has more major wins, 18 major wins to 15. And more total pro wins, 117 to 110, than Tiger Woods. Now, take under consideration another intangible here. Nicklaus has won more when he got older. Tiger Woods in his prime, wasn't nobody messing with Tiger Woods. He was tearing everybody up. Vijay Singh couldn't do it. Phil Mickelson couldn't mess with him. Retief Goosen couldn't mess with this guy. Tiger Woods was hurting everybody. He was young doing it. So Tiger Woods in his prime, you know what? Nobody messing with him. Hopefully one day we'll be talking about Scottie Scheffler up against Tiger Woods, who's the GOAT at this time. Who knows? In this case here, I'm going to take my man Tiger Woods on this one as the GOAT because I've seen how great Tiger Woods was. I know that there are people out there that believe that the Golden Bear is better than Tiger Woods. I get it. And that's cool. That's where we have the fun as sports fans. But that doesn't mean that Jack Nicklaus is not done his due diligence for the sport of golf. I just got my preference. It's my taste. So yes, Tiger Woods versus Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear. And then we go to football, our team sport here. Now, this one is a little different because we're talking about a certain game, and that's the Super Bowl. And we got Tom Brady up against my man, Joe Montana. I'm a 49ers fan. I didn't get to watch Joe Montana as a young boy because Joe Montana ended up getting hurt, yielding to Steve Young. I grew up with Steve Young as a 49ers fan, but I do know the mystique of Joe Montana. Joe cool, but I also watched Tom Brady evolve. I watched him. Greatness in his own right. Now look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's 7-3. He's won the 10 Super Bowls. He's won 7 of them. A 98 passer rating in the Super Bowl, 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, 5 MVPs in the Super Bowl. Now, take under consideration Tom Brady's his regular season numbers, his playoff numbers way ahead of Joe Montana. But looking at Joe Montana in the Super Bowl, looking at Joe Cool, 4-0 in the Super Bowl. Been to the Super Bowl 4 times, won all 4 of them, 127.8 passer rating, 11 touchdowns to no INTs, and 3 of the 4 Super Bowls he won MVP 3 times in the Super Bowl. The intangible here, the quarterback position, very protected as opposed to Joe Montana. Back in the 80s, quarterbacks were, you get hit, boy, you get hit. You know, roughing the passer, you had to really, really knock a quarterback out to get roughing the passer. Nowadays, you sneeze on the guy, throw the flag. Tom Brady, a beneficiary, the tuck rule. And you can't hit the quarterback below the knees. Tom Brady missed the season because of that. Matt Castle made his money when that happened. And of course, the tuck rule, bringing the New England Patriots to the Super Bowl. Very, very questionable call there. Deflate gate. You've got the controversy around Tom Brady. You do. Joe Montana, not really much controversy there. We have these talks about what these quarterbacks would do with different rules. If Tom Brady were in there with a Lawrence Taylor, if he were in there with a Reggie White, but also, too, what about Joe Montana with an Aaron Donald? What about Joe Montana against a Ray Lewis, a T Sizzle? What about Joe Montana against an AJ Hawk, a Dominican Sue? Who knows? With the quarterback rules intact as well, too. Who knows? That's what I love about this conversation. That's what I love about it right here, because you have so many intangibles out there. Who knows? And last but definitely not least, we have the most famous GOAT conversation of all time. Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Oh, man, when I was subbing, I loved having this conversation with the younger kids. Man, I'm going to tell you what, I've never seen so many kids just jump on me at the same time. But I don't care. I'd do it again. We had these conversations here with Boom because we have an age dynamic here. You know, Carson Williams, Aaron Schneider, Chris DeLuca, Malvin Alford, Mike, MD. They're all younger. Then you've got me, got Sean Lucas, got Jason Colenso. You know, us being older, approaching, you know, the latter part of our life, the older part of our life. I ain't going to say what, but me, I'm going to go ahead and just be honest with you. I'll be 40 in June of next year. I'll be 40. Looking forward to that. I'll let the other guys tell you their age. I don't care. I'll let them tell you that. But those are my guys right there. We got to stay together. Now, MJ and LBJ. Michael Jordan, 6 NBA titles. He never played a game 7. 6 times he's went to the NBA Finals. He's won. 6 Finals MVPs, all 6 of them. Finals MVP, 5 regular season MVPs, 10 scoring titles, won a Defensive Player of the Year, and 9 all NBA defensive teams in his career. Then we go to LeBron. LeBron, 4 NBA titles, but take under consideration LeBron went to 10 NBA finals and only won 4 titles. 4 finals MVPs, 4 regular season MVPs, NBA all-time leading scorer LeBron James is. Now, you also got to take under consideration as well, too, more physicality in Jordan's time. You know, the Jordan rules that the bad boy Pistons had. Then LeBron, you know, playing in a softer, kinder, gentler NBA with load management as well, too. Don't get me started on that. That's why they brought Mike back. That's why Mike and Mike Tirico had that great talk during the beginning of the NBA season this year. Wake up call to the league. Oh, I know what they was doing. I know what they was doing, and I love it. I love it. However, looking at it right here, and also, too, I failed to mention, I take Tom Brady over Joe Montana. That breaks my heart to say, but it is what it is. I'll take Tom Brady over Joe Cool, but I'm still a 49ers fan. I'm still a 49ers fan. Looking at this, Mike all day long, man. I'm a Mike guy. I grew up with Mike. I watched LeBron play. I have a lot of respect and a lot of love for LeBron. I do. But Mike, all day long, Mike, he had that killer instinct. He knew how to finish a game. That was Mike. I don't see that in LeBron. But that doesn't mean that LeBron is not great in his own right. Now, guys, if I missed your sport, if there is another GOAT conversation in another sport, put it down in the comments. Make sure that you do so, because I love to hear it. I would love to hear it. Put who you feel like is the GOAT in these 4 that I talked about. Do you like Lewis Hamilton over Michael Schumacher, or vice versa? Do you like Tiger over the Golden Bear, or vice versa? Maybe you like Montana over Brady. Maybe you like LeBron over Mike. Put that down in the comments, everybody. I've had fun talking with you here on this podcast called Quick Hits. Make sure you're back next week. Make sure you're watching the content here on Boom Broadcasting. Enjoy your weekend. Get you some rest. Enjoy the sports. Spend time with your family. Go to church on Sunday and be back next week. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm Shannon Smith, and this is Quick Hits.
Now they holler, he'll turn, thinking I'ma sell out, talking just to feel heard. I never listen, although they say it's strictly